Just as I returned home, my neighbor stopped me and shouted, "Your grandchildren are too loud at night. Their crying keeps me awake." I froze. But my son and daughter-in-law don't have children yet. She insisted, "I see your daughter-in-law holding them every night." The next day, I pretended to go on a business trip and hid in the attic. What I discovered left my mind numb, and nothing was ever the same again. Before I tell you what I found in that attic, tell me, where are you watching this from? And what time is it there right now? Drop a comment. I need to know I'm not alone in this. I'm Warren Bennett, 65 years old. Widower turned reluctant newlywed. And that afternoon, standing in my own driveway in Myers Park, I felt the first chill of something terribly wrong. Mrs. Gladys Monroe had been my neighbor for 20 years. She knew everything about everyone on Hermitage Road. The woman could spot a secret from 3 houses away. So when she cornered me by the mailbox, her weathered face tight with concern, I knew this wasn't idle gossip. "Warren, I hate to pry," she began, wringing her hands. The autumn wind scattered golden leaves around our feet. "But those babies cry every single night, right through these thin walls. I can barely sleep." My blood turned cold. "What babies? Gladys, Spencer, and Courtney don't have children yet." Her eyes widened. "Then whose children are crying in your house every night?" I had no answer. Inside the house smelled like cinnamon and vanilla Courtney's signature candles. She was in the kitchen, wiping down counters that already looked spotless. Too spotless for a woman who usually left dishes in the sink. "Hey, Dad!" She spun around, that practiced smile plastered on her face. "You're back early? How was shopping?" "Fine." I set my grocery bags on the counter, watching her carefully. "Gladys just told me something interesting. She says she hears babies crying here at night." Courtney's smile faltered for just a second, just long enough for me to notice. "Oh, that!" She laughed, but it sounded forced. "That's my friend Cassidy's kids. She's going through a rough patch with her husband. I told her she could stay here for a few days while Spencer's out of town. I was going to mention it, but..." She trailed off, busying herself with the dish towel. "What's Cassidy's last name?" I asked casually, leaning against the counter. She hesitated. Davis. Cassidy Davis." The pause was too long. The name came too slowly. I'd been a financial auditor for 40 years. I knew when someone was lying. "When's Spencer coming back?" I asked, changing the subject. "Thursday, maybe Friday." Another pause. "When are you visiting again, Dad? I know you and Judith are busy with the new place." There it was. She wanted to know my schedule. She needed to know when I'd be around. I forced a smile. "Not sure yet. I'll let you know." That night, I couldn't sleep. Judith had invited me to stay at our place across town, but I'd made an excuse about fixing the leaky faucet here. The truth was, something gnawed at me. That hesitation in Courtney's voice, that too-perfect kitchen, the way she'd asked about my schedule like she was checking a surveillance roster. At 11 o'clock, lying in my old bedroom upstairs, I heard it. Crying. Faint, muffled, but unmistakable. A baby's cry, thin and desperate, coming from somewhere below. Then footsteps. Quick, soft. A woman's voice, hushed and soothing, trying to quiet the sound before it grew louder. Within seconds, silence returned. But the damage was done. Mrs. Monroe wasn't imagining things. There were babies in this house. Courtney had lied about Cassidy Davis. I could feel it in my bones. And my son, my trusting, hard-working son, had no idea what was happening under his own roof. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. That night I barely slept. And when I did, one thought kept circling. What is my daughter-in-law hiding? By morning I knew what I had to do. If Courtney was hiding something, I would find out, even if it meant lying to my own family. I waited until 9 o'clock, then made my move. I dialed George Caldwell, an old friend from my banking days, loud enough for Courtney to hear from the kitchen. "George, hey. Yeah, I know it's short notice. Judith and I need to head to Atlanta for a few days. Some paperwork with the old firm. We'll be back Thursday." I paused, nodding, as if George were responding. "Right. Thanks, buddy. I'll call you when we're back." I hung up and walked into the kitchen. Courtney was wiping the counter, but her eyes were bright, too bright. "Atlanta?" she asked, her voice casual. "When are you leaving?" "This morning, around 11. "Oh," she smiled. "Well, have a safe trip, Warren. Don't worry about anything here." I nodded and went upstairs to pack. But I didn't pack much, just enough to make it look real. At 11 o'clock, I carried my bag to the car, waved goodbye to Courtney through the window, and drove away. But I didn't go far. I parked at a small cafe 2 blocks down, ordered a coffee, and watched. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from Judith. You okay? I texted back, yes, waiting. Then through the cafe window, I saw it. Courtney stepped out onto the front porch, phone pressed to her ear. She was smiling, laughing even. She spoke for maybe 2 minutes, then went back inside. That was all I needed to see. At 1 o'clock, I drove back toward the house slowly, carefully. I parked a street over and walked through the neighbor's yard, staying low behind the hedges. From there, I had a clear view of my front door. At 1:15, Courtney came out. She was dressed up heels, a sleek black coat, and a small rolling suitcase. She locked the door, walked to her car, and drove off. I waited 5 minutes. Then I moved. I used my spare key to let myself in through the side door. The house was silent. Empty. I grabbed 2 bottles of water from the fridge, an energy bar from the pantry, my phone charger, and a small towel. Then I climbed the narrow staircase to the attic. The air up there was thick and hot, even in November. Dust floated in the dim light from a small window near the roof. Old furniture sat stacked against the walls, chairs, boxes, a broken lamp. I crouched low and crept toward the far corner, where a gap in the floorboards gave me a view of the living room below. I settled in, checked my phone, 2 o'clock, and I waited. 30 minutes passed. My back ached. Sweat dripped down my neck. I shifted my weight, trying not to make a sound. An hour. The house stayed silent. I checked my phone again. 3:30. My hands were shaking. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe Courtney really had just gone to visit a friend. Maybe those babies belonged to someone else, and I was up here hiding in my own attic for nothing. But then footsteps. The front door creaked open. I froze. A woman's voice drifted up through the floorboards. Soft. Familiar. Okay, it's fine. We're here now. It was Courtney's voice. But I had just seen Courtney leave with a suitcase an hour and a half ago. I pressed my eye to the gap in the floor, and what I saw made my heart stop. A woman stepped into the living room, same height as Courtney, same dark hair, same face, but she was holding a baby in each arm. Behind her, a man I'd never seen before carried 2 car seats and a diaper bag. The woman turned, and for just a second I saw her face clearly. It was Courtney, and it wasn't. Then who? I whispered to myself, my breath catching in my throat. I pressed my eye closer to the gap in the attic floor, my breath shallow. My heart pounding so hard I thought they might hear it downstairs. The woman stepped further into the living room, bouncing the babies gently in her arms. One was a little boy with blonde hair and bright blue eyes screaming at the top of his lungs. The other was a girl with soft brown hair and wide, frightened brown eyes clinging to the woman's shoulder. "Shh, Aiden, Ava, it's okay now," the woman murmured, her voice soft and soothing. "We're home. You're safe." I froze. Her voice, it was almost Courtney's, but not quite. Softer, gentler, like a song played in a lower key. The man I'd seen earlier, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a faded gray t-shirt, walked in behind her carrying 2 car seats and a diaper bag that looked like it had been through a war. "Cassidy, I got the diapers," he said, dropping the bag on the couch. "And some formula. We're running low." Cassidy. My mind reeled. Who the hell was Cassidy? The woman Cassidy nodded, still rocking the babies. "Thanks, Malcolm. Can you set up the playpen I need to get them down before they melt?" Malcolm moved quickly, unfolding a portable playpen in the corner of the living room. Cassidy lowered both toddlers into it, handing them each a stuffed animal. Ava grabbed hers, immediately sniffling. Aiden threw his across the room and kept crying. Cassidy sighed, rubbing her temples. Then she straightened, pulled her hair back into a ponytail, and got to work. And I mean work. She moved through the house like a woman on a mission. She vacuumed the entire living room, slowly, methodically getting into every corner. She wiped down the kitchen counters. She scrubbed the sink until it gleamed. She even dusted the mantel above the fireplace, something I'm pretty sure Courtney had never done once in her life. I watched bewildered. This woman looked like my daughter-in-law, but she moved differently. Courtney walked with confidence, head high, shoulders back. This woman moved with exhaustion, her shoulders slightly hunched, her steps careful and deliberate, and her face, when she turned toward the window and the late afternoon light hit her, just right. There was something softer in it, less sharp, less cold. I pulled out my phone, hands trembling. I switched it to silent, angled the camera down through the gap, and zoomed in. Click. I got a clear shot of her profile, her face, the way she held the babies. Proof. Whatever this was, I had proof now. Malcolm came back from the kitchen with a bottle of water. "You okay?" he asked. Cassidy nodded, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Yeah, just tired. Courtney better pay us extra for this." Pay them. My blood went cold. Malcolm chuckled. She will. She always does. Besides, it's only for a few more days, right? Right, Cassidy said, her voice flat. Then her phone buzzed. She pulled it from her pocket, glanced at the screen, and frowned. She tapped it, then set it down on the coffee table on speaker, because both her hands were busy folding a blanket. A woman's voice came through. Smooth, confident. Courtney's voice. Cassidy, how's everything going? Did Dad suspect anything? The room spun. My stomach dropped. I gripped the edge of a dusty box to steady myself. Cassidy glanced toward the ceiling, toward the attic, and for one terrifying second I thought she'd seen me. But she looked away, answering the phone. No, he left this morning. The house is clean. The kids are fine. Malcolm's helping. Good, Courtney said. Keep it that way. I'll be back in 2 days. Make sure everything looks perfect. I will. And Cassidy? Courtney's voice turned sharp. Don't touch anything you're not supposed to. Cassidy's jaw tightened. I know. The call ended. I sat there in the darkness, sweat dripping down my back, my mind racing. Courtney had hired this woman, this Cassidy, to stay in my house. To clean. To pretend. But why? And why did she look exactly like my daughter-in-law? I pressed myself flat against the attic floor, my phone clutched in my hand, recording every word. What I was about to hear would change everything. It was 7 o'clock. Downstairs, Cassidy was washing dishes. Malcolm sat on the couch watching TV. Then her phone rang. She dried her hands and answered on speaker. Hey, she said, exhausted. How's everything? Courtney's voice was sharp. Fine. The kids cried all afternoon. The house is clean, kitchen scrubbed, living room vacuumed. Good, keep it that way. Cassidy hesitated. When are you coming back? Malcolm's getting anxious. 2 more days. Spencer's still out of town. Warren's gone too. Just keep the house perfect. Why not hire a housekeeper? Cassidy asked, frustrated. Courtney laughed coldly. Because if Dad stops by, you'll answer the door. He'll think you're me, the perfect daughter-in-law. My chest tightened. Twin sisters. That's why they looked identical. Cassidy was pretending to be Courtney, so my daughter-in-law could go, Where? This feels risky, Cassidy said. You'll get your $5,000, Courtney snapped. 2 more days, then you're done. The call ended. I sat in the darkness, hands shaking. $5,000 to pretend to be someone else. To lie to me. But why? 2 hours later at 9 o'clock, Cassidy's phone rang again. The kids were asleep. Malcolm had gone to bed. Cassidy sat alone in the kitchen with tea. She answered without speaker mode, but her voice carried. Courtney, I need to talk about the money. Malcolm's worried. We've got credit card bills. You'll get paid, Courtney interrupted. Just do your job. I am, Cassidy said sharply. But what about Spencer? Does he know? Courtney laughed cold and hollow. Of course not. I've spent 6 months planting paranoia about how Dad's leaving everything to Judith, how she'll take his inheritance. He's so desperate to protect what's his he hasn't noticed I've been gone? My blood froze. That's cruel, Cassidy whispered. It's business, Courtney said flatly. He's weak, always has been, but he's useful. And when this is over, I'll have everything I need. What do you mean? Courtney paused. Let's just say I'm not planning to stay married much longer. The line went dead. I sat there, heart pounding. My son, the boy I'd raised and loved, was being manipulated, used, poisoned against me by the woman he trusted most. And I hadn't seen it. I checked the recording. Every word was there, every lie. Then my phone buzzed. Loud, sharp. A text from Judith. Are you okay? You haven't called. The screen lit up bright blue in the pitch-black attic. I froze. Downstairs, Cassidy looked up. Her eyes drifted toward the ceiling. Toward me. Did you hear that? She whispered. I didn't breathe, didn't move. She stood, walked to the base of the stairs, listened. Silence. Probably just the house settling, Malcolm called from the bedroom. Cassidy stared at the ceiling for 5 more seconds. Then she turned and walked away. I exhaled slowly, my lungs burning. That was close? Too close. 5 seconds felt like 5 hours. 1 movement, 1 breath, 1 sound, and she'd find me. Night day 2, 9:45 p.m. I shifted my weight in the cramped attic, trying to ease the ache in my back. My legs had gone numb. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Judith. Warren, it's been hours. Please tell me you're okay. The screen lit up bright blue in the pitch-black attic, and a thin beam of light leaked through the gap in the floorboards. Downstairs, Cassidy was sitting on the couch, feeding Ava a bottle. She looked up. Her eyes drifted toward the ceiling. Malcolm, she said quietly. Yeah, he called from the bedroom. I thought I saw a light up there. She pointed toward the attic. I didn't breathe. My hand clamped over the phone, pressing it face down against the dusty floor. Malcolm walked into the living room, looked up at the ceiling and shrugged. Probably just headlights from a car passing outside. You're exhausted, babe. Get some rest. Cassidy stared at the ceiling for 5 more seconds. Then she nodded. Yeah, you're right. I waited until she walked away, then I exhaled slow, silent shaking. From that moment on, I kept my phone off, completely off. Morning day 3, 10 Suram. Cassidy sat by the window, putting on makeup in front of a small mirror. Morning light poured through the glass, illuminating her face clearly. I crouched low, zoomed in with my phone camera and watched. And that's when I saw it. A small scar, just above her left eyebrow. Barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. I took 3 photos. Close up, clear, undeniable. Proof. Courtney didn't have that scar. I would have noticed. I'd known her for 3 years. This woman Cassidy was not my daughter-in-law. And now I had evidence. Afternoon day 3, 2:50 p.m. Cassidy's phone rang. She answered on speaker, her hands busy wiping down the kitchen counter. We'll be back in 2 hours, Courtney said. Pack up the kids' stuff and leave. Clean everything. Finally, Cassidy said, relief flooding her voice. Ava's running a fever. I don't care, Courtney snapped. Just leave. Spencer might come home early. The call ended. 30 minutes later, Cassidy's phone rang again. She answered annoyed. What now? Blake keeps texting me about documents, Cassidy said, her voice tense. What documents? Courtney sighed, irritated. Don't worry about it. Tell him I'll handle it when I get back. Handle what? Cassidy pressed. Courtney, what's going on? There was a long pause. Then Courtney's voice came through cold, sharp, deliberate. The forgery paperwork is almost done. Once we get Warren's signature on the transfer deed, the $850,000 house will be ours. Blake and I already have a buyer lined up. My stomach dropped. Forgery, Cassidy's voice cracked. Courtney, that's illegal. You could go to prison. Shut up and do your job, Courtney hissed. You're getting paid to clean, not to ask questions. The line went dead. I sat there in the darkness, my hands trembling, my chest tight. My house. My $850,000 home. She was planning to steal it, and she was using my own son's paranoia, his fear to do it. My house, my son, my life. Courtney had tried to take it all. But not anymore. It was time to end this. I made 3 calls. One to my wife Judith, one to Officer Parker, and one to my son, a call that would change everything. 3:00 p.m., day 3. I crouched low in the attic. Phone pressed to my ear, whispering, Judith, it's worse than we thought. Forgery, $850,000. Call Officer Parker. Tell him to come to 428 Hermitage Road. 5:30 p.m. exactly. There was a pause, then Judith's voice quiet and steady. Warren, are you sure you want to do this? Spencer's going to be devastated. I closed my eyes. He already is. He just doesn't know it yet. Okay, she said. I'll be there. Next, I called Officer Parker. I kept it short. Explained the situation. Sent him the audio recordings via email. We'll be there, he said. Don't do anything until we arrive. I won't. Then I dialed Spencer. He answered on the second ring. Dad, I thought you were in Atlanta with Judith. What's going on? Son, I need you to come home, right now. What, why? There's an urgent property transfer document. I need your signature. It can't wait. Property transfer. His voice was confused. Dad, what are you talking about? Just come home. 5:30. Don't tell Courtney. Okay, I'll be there. I hung up, took a deep breath. Everything was in motion now. 4:00 p.m. Courtney and Blake arrive. A white BMW pulled into the driveway. Courtney stepped out first, wearing a sleek black dress and heels, laughing at something Blake said. He followed behind her, tall, broad-shouldered, in a dark suit, his hair slicked back with gel. He carried a leather briefcase. They walked into the house like they owned it. Inside, Cassidy was still there, frantically gathering toys from the living room floor. Courtney's smile vanished. Cassidy, why are you still here? I told you to be gone by 4. Cassidy looked up, startled. The kids were crying, Ava's running a fever. I couldn't just... I don't care, Courtney hissed. Get out, Spencer could come home early. Blake shifted uncomfortably. Babe, keep your voice down. Malcolm hurried in from the kitchen, scooping up Aiden. Cassidy grabbed Ava, whose face was flushed red, her tiny body limp with exhaustion. They scrambled to gather everything, diaper bags, bottles, toys, and rushed toward the back door. As they stepped outside, Cassidy whispered to Malcolm, Something's wrong. She's acting paranoid. We got paid, Malcolm muttered. Let's just go. Their old Honda sputtered to life, and they were gone. 4:10 p.m., Courtney and Blake clean up. Courtney exhaled, smoothing her hair. Finally. That girl talks too much. Blake set the briefcase on the kitchen counter. Are you sure this is going to work? Courtney shot him a look. Relax. Warren trusts me. He'll sign anything I put in front of him. She moved through the house, quickly picking up the last stray toys and tossing them into a trash bag. She sprayed air freshener to mask the smell of baby powder. Wiped down the counters one more time. Blake pulled a stack of papers from the briefcase and laid them on the dining table. These are perfect, he said. The signature looks identical. Once Spencer signs thinking it's insurance paperwork, we file the transfer deed. Courtney picked up the papers, scanning them with a satisfied smile. And then, Blake leaned back against the table. Then we sell the house through a shell company. $850,000. Split 50-50. And we disappear to Costa Rica, just like we planned. Courtney's smile widened. Spencer will never know. What about the old man? Courtney waved a hand dismissively. Warren, by the time he figures it out, will be long gone. He won't be able to prove anything. Blake chuckled. You're cold, you know that. I'm practical, Courtney corrected. Up in the attic, I listened to every word. My hands clenched into fists so tight my knuckles cracked. You're wrong, Courtney. I can prove everything. A key turned in the front door lock. Courtney and Blake froze. Spencer's face shifted from confusion to shock in 3 seconds flat. That's when I knew there was no hiding anymore. It was time. The front door swung open. Spencer stepped inside, still wearing his work suit, laptop bag slung over his shoulder. He stopped, stared. Courtney stood in the middle of the living room, wearing a sleek black dress. Beside her was a tall man in a dark suit, Blake holding a stack of papers. I'm Courtney. Spencer's voice cracked. What the hell is going on? Who is this guy? I thought you were staying at your sister's place in Raleigh. Courtney flinched, then forced a smile. Spencer, baby, you're home early. This is Blake Morrison. He's a lawyer. He's helping us update our homeowner's insurance. Spencer's eyes narrowed. Insurance. We renewed last month, and why are you here? You said you'd be gone all week. Blake stood shifting uncomfortably. I should go. Spencer stepped forward, blocking the door. His voice hardened. No, stay. I want to know exactly what's happening in my father's house. Courtney's smile faltered. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Spencer, you're overreacting. It's just paperwork. Before Spencer could respond, the back door burst open. Cassidy stumbled in breathless, hair disheveled, clutching a small stuffed rabbit. I'm so sorry. Ava dropped her favorite bunny and she won't stop crying without it. She froze. Her eyes landed on Spencer. Spencer turned, looked at Cassidy, then back at Courtney. His mouth fell open. What there are two of you? He stared at Courtney in her elegant dress, then at Cassidy in her wrinkled t-shirt and jeans. Courtney, do you have a twin sister? Why didn't you ever tell me? Courtney's face went pale. Yes, that's Cassidy, my twin. I told you. You forgot. I would never forget something like that. Never. And whose babies are crying in the car outside. He pointed toward the back door where faint wails echoed. Cassidy backed toward the door. I'm sorry, I just need the bunny. Courtney whipped around. Get out, Cassidy, now! Blake grabbed his briefcase. Courtney, this is spiraling. We need to leave. Spencer blocked the door again, his voice rising. Nobody's leaving until someone tells me the truth. The room erupted into chaos voices, overlapping, shouting panic. Then, creak, creak, creak. Slow, deliberate footsteps descended the stairs. Everyone stopped, turned. The attic door swung open. I stepped down one stair at a time. My clothes were wrinkled, covered in dust. My face was grim. Judith walked in through the front door, her coat buttoned, her expression calm but tense. Behind her, Officer Parker and another uniformed officer stepped inside. Spencer's face drained of all color. Dad, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Atlanta with Judith. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs, met my son's eyes. I never left, son. I've been in that attic for 2 days, watching, listening, recording every single lie. Spencer looked at me, at Courtney, at Cassidy. His knees buckled. Courtney stood frozen. Blake set his briefcase down slowly. He knew it was over. A moment later, I pulled out my phone, pressed play, set the volume high. Courtney's voice filled the room. Keep feeding Spencer that nonsense about Dad leaving everything to Judith. I need him paranoid. Spencer stumbled back as if I'd slapped him. The recording continued. The forgery paperwork is almost done. Once we get Warren's signature on the transfer deed, the $850,000 house will be ours. Blake and I already have a buyer lined up. Spencer turned to Courtney, his voice barely a whisper. Forgery. You were going to steal Dad's house. Our house. Courtney said nothing, bit her lip. I stepped closer, my voice shaking with emotion. Not just my house, son. Your inheritance, too. She was going to forge my signature transfer, the deed into her name, sell it and disappear with him. I pointed at Blake. Spencer looked at Blake. Who are you? Blake didn't answer, just lowered his head. Blake Morrison, I said. Real estate lawyer. Also your wife's lover for the past 2 years. Spencer's legs gave out. He sank onto the couch, staring at nothing. A few minutes later, Officer Parker stepped forward, handcuffs glinting. Courtney Bennett, Blake Morrison, you're both under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and identity theft. Blake held out his wrists silently. Courtney exploded. No, this is your fault. Spencer, you're so pathetic, so easy to manipulate. Spencer flinched like she'd struck him. Courtney kept going, her voice wild. Your stupid daddy issues made everything so simple. Oh, Dad remarried. Dad forgot Mom. Poor me. You're weak. You've always been weak. Officer Parker grabbed her arm. Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. I never loved you, Spencer. Never Blake and I have been together since your mother's funeral. You were just a meal ticket. Spencer's face crumpled. He covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking. Judith stepped forward, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. 10 minutes later, Officer Parker cuffed Courtney. She thrashed, still screaming. That old man and his gold-digger wife were going to take everything that was saving you. They dragged her toward the door. Blake followed silently, head down. Cassidy stood in the corner, trembling. I didn't know about the forgery, I swear. She just paid me to clean the house. Officer Parker nodded. We know, ma'am. You're free to go. Cassidy ran out the back door, got into her car, and disappeared. The front door slammed shut. Silence. My son sat on the couch, broken. Judith stood beside him, her hand still on his shoulder. I stood across the room, my heart aching. The door was closed. The liars were gone. But my son sat there, shattered. And I didn't know if he'd ever forgive me, or himself. The house fell silent after they were gone. Spencer locked himself in his old bedroom. For 3 days straight, he didn't eat, didn't speak, didn't cry. I stood outside his door, helpless. The first week. The morning after the arrest, Spencer walked upstairs and locked his door. He didn't come out. I knocked every day. Son, I made breakfast. You need to eat. Silence. I left plates outside his door. They sat untouched for hours. On the 6th day, I sat outside his door, my back against the wall. I'm not going anywhere, I said quietly. I'll sit here as long as you need. You're my son. The next day, the door opened a crack. Spencer's hand reached out, grabbed the bowl of soup, and pulled it inside. It was a start. The first conversation. 4 days later, the door opened wider. Spencer stood there, gaunt, unshaven, hollow-eyed. Dad, can we talk? We sat on the staircase. Spencer stared at his hands. Why could you replace Mom so easily with Judith? It's only been 5 years. I exhaled slowly. It's been 5 years of waking up alone. 5 years of drowning. Judith didn't replace your mother. She threw me a lifeline. There's a difference. I felt like you forgot Mom. I will never forget her, I said, gripping his hand. She's in every memory. But Spencer, your mother wouldn't want me to die with her memory. She wanted me to live. Spencer wrapped his arms around me and sobbed. A memory of Eleanor. A week later, we looked through old photo albums. I told Spencer about Eleanor, how she fought cancer for 3 years, how she never complained even when the chemo made her too weak to stand. The night before she died, I said she made me promise something. She said, Warren, don't spend the rest of your life alone. Find someone. Be happy. Promise me. So I did. Spencer stared at me, shocked. Mom wanted you to remarry. She loved you too, Spencer. She made me promise I'd help you heal. But I failed. I let you push me away. You didn't fail, Dad. I couldn't let go, realizing the manipulation. 3 days later, Spencer scrolled through old texts from Courtney. He saw the pattern. Every time I mentioned Judith, Courtney brought up inheritance, or your mom would be hurt. Every time Spencer wanted to visit, she had other plans. She weaponized my grief, Spencer whispered. She used my pain against you. She saw your pain and exploited it. I said, that's not love. That's manipulation. How do I trust anyone again? 1 day at a time, and you start by forgiving yourself. Meeting Judith. 4 days later, Judith visited. She brought homemade apple pie, the kind Eleanor used to make. Spencer opened the door awkward. Hi, Judith. I'm sorry. I blamed you for things that weren't your fault. Judith smiled gently. Grief makes us say things we don't mean. I understand. Did you ever meet my mom? No, but your father talks about her every day. He hasn't forgotten her, Spencer, and I never would ask him to. Eleanor will always be part of this family. Spencer looked at Judith in a new light, and for the first time he understood the road forward. Over the next week, Spencer started eating regularly, sleeping. He filed for divorce. He took a new job in Raleigh, a fresh start. Before he left, he stood at the door, bags packed. "Dad, can I come back for Christmas?" I hugged him tightly. "This is your home, son, always." He pulled away, looked me in the eye. "Dad, thank you for not giving up on me." I smiled through my tears. "Never, son, never." A month later, the first snow of winter fell on Charlotte. Spencer came home for Christmas, just like he promised. We sat around the table, me, Judith, and my son, sharing a meal, sharing laughter, sharing peace. Looking back now, I realize how close I came to losing him. Not to Courtney's lies, but to my own silence. I thought giving Spencer space meant giving him freedom. But what he needed was the truth. What he needed was me fighting for him even when he pushed me away. If you're reading these grandpa stories tonight, learn from my mistakes. Don't let silence become a weapon. Don't let grief become a prison. And if someone you love is drowning in pain, throw them a lifeline, even if they don't reach for it, the first time, the second time, or the 10th time. Keep reaching. This true story taught me that love isn't always gentle. Sometimes it's sitting outside a locked door for hours. Sometimes it's hiding in an attic for 2 days to protect what matters most. Sometimes it's saying the hard truths when lies are easier. God gave us family not to break us, but to refine us. And sometimes the refining fire burns everything false away until only truth remains. Spencer and I are still healing, but we're healing together, and that's what matters. So I ask you, have you ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted? Have you ever had to fight for someone you love, even when they didn't want to be saved? Share your true story in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel if these grandpa stories remind you that truth always wins. And remember, you're never too broken to begin again. These grandpa stories are real. This is a true story, and it could be yours too.